Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about apostrophes, which are important in our writing, because they come under the category of grammar and punctuation, and to use apostrophes accurately will get you marks because it makes your writing clear. Apostrophes are important in all subjects, not just English, because we need to be writing clearly for our readers, whatever we do. So this is not just necessarily a video for English lessons. It can be a video for all lessons because good writing is important in all contexts. In the context of GCSE though, apostrophes are most important in the writing tasks because you will be awarded marks for using apostrophes correctly because they are regarded as the more complex punctuation mark along with semicolons and colons. So if you can use apostrophes correctly, you're going to be rewarded for that. Apostrophes have two main jobs. They show possession and they also show omission. So these are the two jobs that apostrophes have, and these are the two roles really that we're going to be talking about in this video. So to start by talking about possession, when we talk about possession, we mean that the apostrophe tells us that something belongs to something else. And in these 8 examples, the noun, which is the object, the thing that we're actually talking about, is all in the singular. So one cat, one student, one star, and so on. And each of those objects owns something. So the cat owns a dish, the student owns a bag, the star owns the light, the cake owns its icing, and so on. So these are all examples of what I call singular possession, which means one thing owns something else. In the brackets you can see I've written out what the sentence means when you take away the apostrophe. So in all of these examples, one thing owns another thing. If we look at number 7, we've got a proper noun there, Jess. And the question that students often have is, what do I do if the noun already ends in an S? So names like Jess or Chris and so on. You can either just put an apostrophe after the second S, or you can add an extra apostrophe as I've done here. It looks a bit odd to have 3 S's in a row, but it's also okay. And I personally am somebody that puts an extra S myself. So that's what you would do if you have a name that ends already in S. You can add an extra S, or you can just put an apostrophe at the end of the name. Okay, so those are all examples of one thing owning another thing. When we have, though, plural possession, it means that you have more than one noun owning something. So if we look at number 1 now, we've got more than one cat. So we can't put the apostrophe between the T and the S because that would suggest we have one cat, but we don't. We have multiple cats. So we have to put the apostrophes here at the end of the word, not between the S and the other letter. We have to put the apostrophe at the end, completely at the end of the word. And this tells us that more than one thing owns something. So the stable belongs to more than one horse. The meeting belongs to more than one counsellor. The house belongs to multiple girls, and so on. So if you want to show more than one thing owning something, you would put the apostrophe at the end of the word after the S. In terms of omission, which is the second job that apostrophes have, this is slightly simpler. It shows us that a word or a letter has been taken out, mainly a letter. So I couldn't do it obviously means I could not do it. So the apostrophe there in couldn't replaces the O. She hadn't, meaning she had not. You're, meaning you are, and so on. It's, number 4, means it is. So it is totally unacceptable. Okay, so those are showing omissions, meaning that a letter has been removed and the word is therefore contracted, which means that it's pulled together, it's made smaller. Okay, so that is the second job that an apostrophe has. It shows omission. A letter has been taken out. In terms of plural, so you don't need to use an apostrophe if you are writing about plurals. So all of these examples here are incorrect because for example, in the top sentence, we're not talking about the table owning anything. So it's not a possession, and we're also not replacing a letter, so it's not a mission either. The writer clearly just wants to say there's more than one table. So they're going to have to say tables, meaning the plural. When you're writing about a plural, you don't need an apostrophe at all. And it's the same in the second one. When you're talking about more than one cake, you just put cakes without the apostrophe. And it's the same with cars and years in the third sentence as well. So don't feel that just because a word ends in S, it needs an apostrophe. It only needs an apostrophe if the thing belongs to something, or owns something, I should say, or if you're removing a letter. None of these examples fit that criteria. So if we're going to write these examples correctly, they would look something like this. Very simply, you've got the nouns without any apostrophes there at all, because you're just writing about a plural. You're not suggesting possession or omission. So resist the temptation to put an apostrophe in just because it ends in S. Okay. So finally, you can have a go now. In the top three examples, we have where a letter needs to be removed and an apostrophe put in. In 4 to 6, we have singular possessions, so something on its own is owning something else. And in 7 to 9, we have plurals, so where multiple things owns something or possesses something. Okay, so you can pause the video now and you can have a go at putting the apostrophes in the correct place, and then I will go through the answers. So on the left-hand side, we have the answers if you are going to be using apostrophes correctly. So very clearly, 1 to 3, let's talk about those first. You didn't, meaning you did not. Instagram's down, meaning Instagram is down. So that apostrophe in number 2 replaces the I. And how's your day going means how is your day going. So those perhaps are the more simpler ones. Those apostrophes are just showing that a letter has been removed. And it means that when you remove that letter, it contracts. It means it joins the S with the existing word. So if I type in this box here Instagram is down, what you're doing is you're taking that I out and doing that instead. Okay, so that is showing the omission there. A letter's been taken out. Let's talk about singular possession then. The garden's plants are in bloom. So we have here the phrase garden's plants. So the plants belong to the garden. Okay, so these objects belong to this. We don't put an apostrophe here because plant is the plural. So we're saying more than one plant. So we don't need to put an apostrophe in that at all. The dog's kennel, so the kennel belongs to the dog, and the snoring belongs to Bob. So it's his snoring. So we need to show that that snoring belongs to Bob. Okay. Finally, when we're showing plural possession, this is probably the difficult ones. Because we are talking about more than one parent, we're talking about parents in the plural already, we're talking about the consent that the parents have to give in the court order. So because that consent belongs to both people, both parents, it means that we put the apostrophe here because that consent belongs to more than one person here. Okay. Same thing with the suspect's fingerprints. Those fingerprints belong to more than one person. If we were to put the apostrophe here, it would suggest those fingerprints belong to one person, which they don't in this case. They belong to more than one person, so we put the apostrophe there. And because the stables belongs to more than one horse, that is the correct way of writing it. Again, if we were to put the apostrophe here, it would suggest one horse owns the stable, but the apostrophe would go here, and we would not want to put an apostrophe here in this case because we're not taking a letter out. We're also not showing possession either. So it would just be that. Same thing with fingerprints as well there. So all of these examples here, the object belongs to more than one thing. Okay, so more than one parent, more than one suspect, more than one horse, and that's why we put the apostrophe at the end. Okay, so apostrophes are sometimes a little bit tricky. They do sometimes take a little bit of thinking about. Obviously, there's loads of information online about them, but the more you can use apostrophes accurately, the more marks you will get. Particularly in GCSE English, but also in other courses such as functional skills as well. So those are the two main roles of apostrophes.